Okay, I have 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's January 18th, 2022, the meeting of the Livingston County Board of Commissioners. Before we get started, I would like to take a pause for a moment of silent reflection, if you join me. Thank you. And if you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Nakagiri.
Here.
Commissioner Griffith. Here. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Reeder.
Here.
Commissioner Helserman.
Here.
Commissioner Dreck.
Here.
Commissioner Zajac.
Here.
Commissioner Gross.
Here.
Commissioner Plank. Quorum is present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is correspondence. We have no correspondence, so we'll move on to item 6, which is called to the public. This is the opportunity for citizens to address the board. There are a few changes, little differences from last year. So the first call of public will still be 3 minutes. We ask that you fill out this card. Anybody wishing to address the Board of Commissioners to fill out the card, and then we'll call you by name. There still is a second call to the public in a full board meeting. That's at the end of the meeting. That will be 2 minutes in length. So that's the changes. So I will start out by asking if anybody, Ms. Bullard.
I didn't know about the cards. So I don't know what they have.
Well, yeah.
Either one.
Either one.
My name is Linda Bullard and I live in Brighton Township. And I wanted to read to you today a snippet from the Michigan Democratic Party, something they published yesterday. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but a couple quotes are, "Not sure where this parent should control what is taught in schools because they are our kids is originating. The client of the public schools is not the parent." This philosophy carries over to another snippet I'd like to read to you. And this is from Chuck Hughes, superintendent of a Livingston County school. It's dated January 12th, just last week. I'm not going to read the whole thing, again, part of it. "The fact is that when a mask mandate is issued, the choice is clear. Wear a mask during the school day or stay home for the duration of the mandate. These decisions are firm. There will be no tolerance for individuals who choose not to follow the shared expectations for attending school." And another one also dated January 12th of this year, another Livingston County school from the principal, Mickey Cheney and Crystal Brisky, might even be from the same school, I'm not sure. That quote, "The district is mandating that all students and staff wear masks beginning Thursday, January 13th through Friday, January 28th. On January 28th, we will consult with the Livingston County Health Department to determine if masks will continue to be worn." And lastly, from the revised school code, MCL 380.10, Rights of Parents and Duties of Public Schools, Section 10. "It is the natural fundamental right of parents and legal guardians to determine and direct the care, teaching, and education of their children. The public schools of this state serve the needs of the pupils by cooperating with the pupils' parents." I'm almost certain you can see the contradictions between what the school officials said last week and what the law in Michigan says. I'd like to take you back a month or so to the board's meeting on November 22nd, 2021, where there were lies and fraud admitted to between our local health department in Livingston County, our schools, and the board about mandates such as masks. Everyone knows the schools don't have authority, as they claim in these emails from last week that they sent the parents. So I'll remind you all again, I've said this before to each of you, you took an oath of office. And I'd also like to ask you if you're aware of the Michigan County Board of Commissioners Act.
You have 15 seconds.
specifically MCL 4611, section 11K. And I'll ask you specifically about the officer position called Livingston County Health Department Director Officer in the context of that MCL. Are you aware of what compensation has been paid to that officer? Do you know where the officer's oath is on file? Do you know if this officer has
Your-
the required bond
your
for
time is up.
faithful performance? I encourage you to look at that law. Thank you.
Anybody else in the room wishing to address the board? Okay, how about on Zoom? I'll scroll through see if there's anybody with their hand raised. I do not see anybody, so I'm going to go ahead and close the first call to public and remind citizens that there is a second call to public for 2 minutes in duration at the end of the meeting. Item number 7 on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes dated January 3rd, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Commissioner Helserman, support by Commissioner Plank. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion passes. There are no tabled items, so we'll move on to item number 9, which is approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Griffith.
Motion by Commissioner Griffith, support by Commissioner Smith. Any comments, questions? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? We have an agenda. Item number 10 is reports, an opportunity for commissioners to share information with their colleagues on the board. Are there any commissioners that have any reports to share this evening? Seeing none, I'll close the reports. And we'll move on to item number 11 in the agenda, which is a public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant. What I'd like to do before we actually call the hearing to order is ask Kathleen Klein Hudson if you could speak to the grant closeout, a little briefing for the board.
Just a clarification. I think my report needs to be during the public hearing.
Okay, okay.
MEDC.
So then, what I need is a motion to start the public hearing for the CDBG.
Support, Griffith.
Motion by Commissioner Helserman, support by Commissioner Drick. All those in favor of opening up the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? We have a public hearing. Thank you for the correction.
Oh, no problem. Hopefully you received a report that was emailed out by County Administrator Nathan Bird last week. But if not, I will give you the details of this grant. A closeout public hearing is required for the Michigan Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, funding for Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act. And a public notice of this hearing was published last Thursday, January 13th. And this grant was applied for in 2020, fall of 2020. And the funding is for prevention, mitigation, and response to COVID-19, specifically for healthcare equipment, public services, and salary reimbursement or other CDBG eligible costs as necessary to respond to COVID-19. And Michigan counties were the only entities that were eligible for these funds. The allocation process was determined by the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And it was limited to municipalities and nonprofit organizations. So when we put forth a resolution for applying for the grant, the date of that was September 28th. And the terms of this resolution were that we would administer grant funds to all 19 municipalities in Livingston County, as well as Livingston County itself. and the nonprofits that we have contracts with. And the MEDC allocated to Livingston County $370,302. And the term of the work performance was from January 21st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. And we were able to disseminate this these grant funds to two nonprofits. They were the Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency and Catholic Charities, one Livingston County Department Facility Services, and that was not for want of asking. We put out the request so many times to other county departments, but many of our county departments, as well as our local municipalities, had already applied for CARE funds. And if they had had these COVID-related expenses reimbursed by another grant, of course, they were not eligible to get reimbursement through this grant. And we reimbursed expenses for 8 local units of government. So everyone that applied received funds. We were able to allocate $176,823. I would have loved nothing more than to distribute the full $370,302, but repetitive letters to the communities as well as phone calls. These were all the entities that we could get to come forward with the receipts and the scans of the checks and the various documentation that they needed for MEDC. And the grant writers were myself, Rob Stanford from my staff, and Marcia Jaborowski from Spark. And then that was in partnership with Hillary DeHate from Finance, who reviewed and approved each funding request before it was sent to MEDC. And Jennifer Nash, of course, the county treasurer, dispersed all funds when they were received by MEDC. Do you have any questions for me?
Are there any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Zajac.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question on the remaining funds. Is the time up for people to apply to have received this
It is.
extra funding? Okay.
It was just that primarily that calendar year 2020.
So they can't ask for reimbursement now for that same calendar year?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Helserman.
So none of this came directly to Livingston County government except the facility services. Is that
That's correct.
Do I read it correctly?
Mhm.
Is there the reason that we didn't receive some of this money is because we received other money,
Right.
so we were not eligible for it. Was there any township or municipality who didn't receive one or the other? Were there any that received nothing, so far as you know?
I would not know that.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else? Any other commissioners? And it looks like we're ready to take public comments in this public hearing. Thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate your explanation. And I also want to make a side comment. Your marketing promotion for the park with the stones was very clever.
Oh, thank you.
Very clever. So, are there anybody here in the room wishing to make public comment regarding this grant? No. How about on Zoom? Is there anybody on Zoom? Does not appear so. So we'll go ahead and looking for a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So move, Helserman.
Support Griffith.
Motion by Commissioner Helserman, support by Commissioner Griffith. All those in favor adjourning the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? We're adjourned. The public hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
very much.
Item number 12 on the agenda is resolutions for consideration. As I had emailed out on resolutions that had made it through committee, I am not going to ask the presenter of the resolution to give another presentation unless any commissioner desires it. So on resolution 2022-01-004, so resolution authorizing the 2022 software and maintenance services renewal with Central Square and State of Michigan JIS to provide software and software support and maintenance services. Does any commissioner want the background history on that? Mr. Toby, does anybody have any specific questions for our IT director?
Did we have a motion on it?
Oh, yeah. Hey, there's a minor detail there. Looking for a motion to, is there a motion to, for resolution 2022-01-004?
So move Gross.
Support Plank.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, support by Commissioner Plank. Now, any questions for our IT director?
Mr. Chairman, slight correction on page 2 of the agenda. It ends up talking or referencing central dispatch, and it should actually be priority dispatch. I don't know if that is necessarily a problem or not, but just for purposes of clarity.
That's provide software support and maintenance services priority dispatch? Is
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, if the clerk would make that correction. Any questions for Director Toby? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next resolution, 2022-01-005, it's a resolution to concur with the Livingston County Aeronautical Facilities Board and authorize a purchase order to Arbor Master Tree Service for the trimming and removal of trees that encroach on Livingston County Airport. I'll do it correctly this time. Is there a motion?
Move Helserman.
Support Gross.
Motion by Commissioner Helserman, support by Commissioner Gross. This was one that was presented in committee, but I'll ask any commissioners if they want the background information from Mr. Johnson. If no background information is desired, are there any questions for our Airport Director Johnson? Commissioner Zajac.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Johnson, just curious why this wasn't on the budget that we just worked through at the end of the year and why we're doing a budget amendment.
Because I anticipated that it would be done in 2021 and we didn't get there.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from commissioners? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Next resolution is 2022-01-006. It's a resolution authorizing specialty courts and programs to accept the Bureau of Justice Assistance Grant Award for the Adult Drug Court Program for fiscal years 2022 through fiscal year 2025. Is there a motion?
So moves Zajac.
Support Griffith.
Motion by Commissioner Zajac, support by Commissioner Griffith. This is a resolution that did not go through committee. This is the first time we're hearing it in front of the board. So I'll ask, I'm thinking it's probably Sarah Applegate for the history behind this.
Good evening. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. So yes, I am here with a resolution requesting authorization to accept a grant award that we received from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. This grant is for our adult drug court and is in the amount of $278,666,000. And this is actually a 4-year grant that we're very happy to be getting. This grant does require a 25% in-kind match, which will be met by utilizing the value of services provided by our therapists that are on our adult drug court team, the public defender representative, and the prosecutor representatives that sit on our team. This funding, as I said, is a 4-year grant. We're not requesting any new positions. The grant funds will be utilized for existing staff wages and fringes, drug and alcohol testing, treatment, training for the team, and other program-related expenses to operate and expand our adult drug court. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Are there any questions from commissioners for Ms. Applegate? Commissioner Zajac?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Applegate, just in general, can you walk us through the process for applying for this grant?
Sure. So we actually applied for this back in April. We presented a resolution, I believe it was, and I think I have the date on here. The resolution was presented, I believe, in January, so almost a year ago. We presented the resolution and we were given permission to apply for the grant. It did take us several months to apply for the grant, including budget propositions that we had to put out there. Submission did take a little bit of time, but we were able to submit in April. We did not hear back from this grant until December, or the very end of December, actually. So this one did take a little bit longer than possible or than usual, but it actually does date back to October 1st, 2021 for the fiscal year, for the first fiscal year. So we are happy that at least it will date back to that.
Thank you. And then just in terms of man hours, how many man hours approximately were spent on this application?
Oh, gosh. I would really like to give you an answer that I have more information and exactly how long. It does take a very long time. And I did apply for 9 grants this last year. So I'm not exactly sure how much time was put into this grant per se. The federal grants do take a lot longer than the state grants, just there's a lot more requirements. And it's just a more robust application process. So I'm not exactly sure offhand exactly how many hours, but I could certainly get you that information.
Okay, yeah, I'll look forward to that. And then just in general, you said you applied for 9 grants through the specialty courts this year, approximately, and you can be off by 25 hours either way. I don't care. I'm just generally interested in about how much time you spent on applying for grants.
I would say, gosh, I mean, I'm really just guessing. I don't have a roundabout number right now.
Is it about a month's worth of time? What's that?
At least.
Hours? Okay.
At least it takes me at least a month to prep for not only the process of preparing all the documents for the scale grants, and then for the federal grants, it's at least a month of preparatory work. And then once you get into it, it's probably up to 2 months. And that's not even the process of the budgetary process. That takes probably at least another month. And that takes a lot of people. Heather Germaine McCrae is our financial officer, and she provides a lot of time in that grant. And with this particular grant, we actually consulted with another coordinator from another county who had applied before for a BJA grant. So there was time that he had also given to these grants. So you are talking that it's at least months of preparatory work doing and submitting these grants.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your hard work on these. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Commissioner Drick?
Thank you, Chair. Sarah, what's the expansion that you anticipate over the next 4 years? It's in the resolution and your memo.
Yeah, so when we did have a bit of a budget cut last year with our adult drug court. And when we did it, we really got down to some very low numbers. We had to put a hold on all referrals last year. So we went from we usually average for the last 4 years since I've been in this position, between 80 to 90 participants, because we serve both felony and misdemeanor populations. So we did get down to about 40. So we got very low. So we're going to be able to, with all of these grants that we received, and we're very, very happy to hear that we received this, we will be able to get back up to our original number by the end of the fiscal year. That's our hope. So we should be up to 80. But actually, I received really good news a couple of days ago. I know that I had presented before on another BJA grant. So I had applied for the state BJA grant just in case I didn't get the federal one. And at the time, SCAO had let me know that if we did get the federal BJA grant, we wouldn't be able to take the state one. But after I kind of told them a little bit more about how each grant would be utilized for kind of a different scope, they have allowed us to keep both of them. So we will have that additional money. So we will not only be able to build up to where we originally were, but we will be able to expand. At this point, I don't have an exact number of what we'll be able to expand to, but I know that we'll be able to take at least 10 to 20 additional participants on top of being able to get up to the original 80 to 90 number. So we'll be able to serve quite a few participants this year.
Thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Helserman.
Thank you. Good evening, Sarah. Will we hire more people because of this, or will a part-time become a full-time? Talk about positions and people that will be supported. Are there any new people or additional hours that are involved in this grant?
So actually, my position, the only positions paid for through the grants right now is my position is through several of the grants, because we have the 4 specialty courts and 1 special program. Then I have a coordinator, Jessica Briz, who she is actually in the adult drug court grant, the IT court grant, which is our intensive treatment mental health court. And then she's in the Swift Insure grant. So she's in 3 grants. And then we have a veterans treatment court coordinators that does come out of that grant. So with that being said, when we received the cut in funds, we did have to minimize some of our funding, our positions in the various grants and kind of reallocate them, looking at our time that we spend in the grants and reflecting that properly. So with this, we're able to put a little bit more of Jessica's time back into one of the grants. Several of these adult drug court grants do not allow for, 2 of them don't allow for wages and fringes. So we are going to be able to bring her hours up to reflect her work that she does on adult drug court. But my hours will relatively be the same throughout the various grants. And we will not be adding any positions this year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to take a step back and just ask an observation question if I can. Sarah, do you begin to see any increase that since the state of Michigan has opened up and legalized a rather free flow of marijuana? Are you seeing it translate into a larger use of opioids or any other more severe drugs at this point? Or are you starting to see a trend, or am I leaping to conclusions?
So I would want to look and see if there is a correlation between, the medical marijuana or the legalization of marijuana and, the use of other drugs such as opiates. But what I can tell you is that there has been a massive increase in the numbers of methamphetamine use and stimulant use. So one of our grants is specifically used for that. We have had an increase in opiates, but methamphetamine is increasing well over what our opiates were. So I am happy that we did receive a grant, the SOAR 2 grant, which is specifically to get more intense treatment for those that do have opioid use and methamphetamine use disorders. So we're definitely going to be able to utilize that grant. And that grant actually is going to hopefully have a no cost extension. And so we'll actually be able to use any unused funds next year for that also.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sarah.
Anybody else? I have a question to wrap things up, unless there's follow-up questions from commissioners. The $270,000, it's over 4 years. Is the funding provided all in one lump sum, or do they give us equal chunks over the 4 years?
Yep, it will be equal chunks over the 4 years. It's roughly $70,000 a year. And all of our grants are reimbursement grants. And so we do have to, we spend the funds first and then we seek reimbursement. But yes, it will be broken down into roughly $70,000 a year.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up questions from commissioners? Seeing none, we'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Resolution passes.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Resolution 2022-01-007. It's a resolution adopting the 2022 through 2026 Livingston County Strategic Plan. Is there a motion?
So moved. Support.
Motion by Commissioner Griffith, support by Commissioner Zajac. We had this in front of a committee, but I'll ask if there are any commissioners want a briefing on the history. Hearing none, are there questions on the strategic plan for our county administrator? Appears not. All those in favor of Resolution 2022-01-007 signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion passes. We move down to the accounts payables report. We have claims dated January 18th, 2022, and we have payables dated December 17th, 2021 through January 6th, 2022. Is there a motion to pay the claims and payables?
So move, Gross.
Support. Zajac.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, support by Commissioner Zajac. Are there any questions on the claims and payables?
You're moving both at the same time.
Yeah, actually, I probably should have done one at a time, but I moved them both at the same time, yes.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
Yeah. Questions on either the claims or the payables? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving both the claims and the payables signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion passes. We're at item 14 on the agenda. It's our second and final call to the public. Citizens wishing to address the board will have 2 minutes. I'll ask if there's anybody in the room and anybody on Zoom. Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to close the call to the public and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move, Helserman.
Support Griffith.
Motion by Commissioner Helserman, support by Commissioner Griffith. All of those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.